Now, Alan Tudge is the Trade Minister. He understands that we're trying to do free trade deals with the United Kingdom, with the EU right now, and climate is a little bit like a roller coaster. You've got to be this high to enter, or you've got to have a net zero 2050 to be able to get those deals in place. Again, don't yell at me on the telly. I'm just calling the play. That's the way it is. I'm not going to do this asterisk shit for the next few days. I'm just telling you, because it's the first night to talk about it, about the full field and what's being played here. Here's the talking points that are first out of the gate for the government, though.
We've given them the reassurance that the plan here does not do anything to accelerate the destruction of any industry. To the contrary, we want those industries to be maintained, but customers abroad are changing their views, and we've got to adapt to those customers.
My apologies, that's the Education Minister. Also, Dan Tehan was on with Chris Smith a couple of hours ago.
We've got to be at the table with this debate going on. The world has moved and we need to move as well so that we can make sure that the policies that are put in place will protect our country and in particular our regions.
James, my phone has exploded in the past couple of hours with people who are very strong in their views. Many will be watching us tonight who are sharing in those views after the passionate debates of 2 years ago. What do you say to them? What do you think the consequences are? In a world where black and white is always easier to argue than grey, how do you convince people who backed you last time to back you next time?
Paul, I absolutely understand that there will be many people out there tonight who are disappointed, including people watching this show. And all I would ask of you is just wait until you hear what the Prime Minister has to say. Give him the benefit of the doubt. Hear him out. And if you're not convinced, fair enough. But wait until you hear the arguments. Wait until you see the forecasts. Wait until you understand his rationale. I know there are people who are concerned about this, but I also know the Prime Minister and I know his cabinet. And I know they would never do anything that would harm our country. They would never do anything that would harm our economy. And they would particularly never do any of those things when they know that Australia is in the most dangerous time that we have been in since the 1930s. If there was anything in this announcement that harmed our ability to secure our future for our children and grandchildren, I assure you they would not be doing it. So please, I know it's hard to accept at face value, but wait until you've heard it outlined in detail. And I think at least some of you will be comforted by what you have to hear.
Yeah, because, Michael, the political assessment here, right, again, we're just talking about that play. There's a difference between a goal and a target. There's a difference between legislated and not legislated. There's a difference between having regional MPs who can constantly stand up to hold a government back from its own excesses. But again, you know politics. When you're arguing the grey versus the clarity of black and white, you will lose people along the way. So free political advice, how do you land the people who are very black and white on this to at least look at the grey?
So it's a great question. And, the last election was black and white, and now we're in a period of grey where people are scratching their heads saying, but we thought you thought this, but we now see that you're thinking that. Can you explain that to us? And as James said, Scott Morrison has that job of explaining to people why black is effectively now white, and that will be difficult to do. But I think Morrison's one of the most skilled political operators I've seen. His win at the last election was a phenomenal performance, and absolutely. I think he'll turn this into a whole debate about the economy. As James correctly says, this is a Prime Minister who is very concerned about the bush. His National Party colleagues are very concerned about the bush, and he'd want to contrast it with sort of the Albanese mob, who are sort of all these people sitting in inner city cafes listening to, Joan Baez and Jimi Hendrix and Thunderclap Newman, like it's the 1960s out there. These people have never, I said before, these people have never been to a mine.
Yeah, correct.
Like these inner city lefties who basically work in the public service, who are smarter than all the rest of it, who are certainly smarter than all you people in the country watching tonight because you're Neanderthals and, we're knuckle draggers, and anyone's got a blue-collar job. That's how these inner city elites, treat people in the bush. I mean, we have had people in Melbourne during the week sort of say, oh, God, why doesn't the National Party hurry up? And it's like, oh, please. When you've got a secure job, you can walk to work. You don't have to have public transport. Your school was nearby. The cafes and the shops are just down the road. When the supermarket's across the road, when they're the greatest hardships you've got, and you've got guaranteed salaries, of course country people need to be have concern, the National Party and Scott Morrison need to be concerned about them, and that's exactly what they've done. But it is a very big job. But the idea would be to contrast, what Albanese will offer, which is basically an inner city lifestyle. That's where he comes from, and they're his people, against all the blue collar people and the small business people who need and should have a Liberal National Party government.